Music can change the world. Music can affect your life. But to find the important stuff, you may have to dig a little deeper than American Idol. Welcome to the Deep Cut. This is a podcast that does that digging for you. We shovel through the surface noise that is known as Top 40 Radio and find the gems that are often overlooked. I'm your host, Mick Gray. Let's dig in.
Every street has a name in the towns from which we came, trying to get by without too much damage. I'll meet you at the working man's palace. I'll meet you at the working man's palace. Blue castle on the corner, where an old style light still shines. Two stools by the far wall, and one of them is mine. And if the jukebox wasn't broken, I'd play a song for you. If I even had a notion, if I had a fucking clue. Everybody's feeling strange about their lives and who's to blame. I've been trying not to sink under the challenge. I'll meet you at the working man's palace. I'll meet you at the working man's palace. Has a name in the towns from which we came, trying to get by without too much damage. I'll meet you at the working man's palace. I'll meet you at the working man's palace.
Through my life, I have come across a few artists that I try and acquire almost all their recorded material. But with Jon Langford, that can be a pretty tough job. Since 1976, Langford has recorded as the Mekons, the Waco Brothers, Skull Orchard, the Three Johns, Pine Valley Cosmonauts, the Men of Gwent, the Killer Shrews, and lots of solo stuff too. I do my best, but I'm pretty sure I'll never find it all. On this episode of The Deep Cut, we will talk with Jon about some of these projects, and new stuff too. Be sure to listen till the end for the premiere of the brand new Mekons track, Escalera. And now, to start off, a classic, Hard to Be Human, from the Mekons' 1985 release, Fear and Whiskey. Let's dig in. Hello, everybody. Today we are speaking with an amazing fellow by the name of Jon Langford, singer, songwriter, artist, activist, and all-around great guy. How you doing today, Jon?
I'm good. I'm in Chicago and it's really, really windy and really rainy. So
Oh, you're getting the rain today.
it's a strange time and a strange day.
We are living in a strange time, that's for sure. It is odd. I know that that we don't, we're 2020 we will remember forever. That's a year that we're not going to be able to forget very easily, I tell you that. It's crazy.
I'm hoping we'll remember it in some positive way, if anything actually really changes. But
Yeah, we could.
part of me is hopeful, and then the other part of me is kind of like jaded.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I try to be a positive person and say, hey, all this stuff can lead to positive reform and positive change and positive how we think about our existence, human existence. And we've went through.
Well, it's obviously we have to do that, but it's obvious as well that there are certain forces that don't really recognize there's any need for change, and they like things the way they are.
Yeah,
so.
and how many times have we overthrough history? It looked like there should be change. I mean, after the civil rights movements in the '60s, there should have been change, and it barely changed.
Yeah.
So this positive thought, this will be different. So
I hope so.
Yeah, I want to talk about your career though. You everything kind of started in some time, for at least far as music went. You were going to art school was it England? You were going to in art school in England and in Route 9.
Yeah, I grew up in Wales and I left. It was the first time I'd lived outside of Wales. I lived in Leeds and I was an art student at the University of Leeds Fine Art Department. And the first day I got there, I met most of the people who would be in the Mekons.
Yeah.
And then it was I was really intending to go there and paint. I didn't really have much of an idea what I wanted to do. I just thought it was exciting to go away. I knew, the tradition of British art schools was like it was a liberal education where you could kind of get away with doing whatever you wanted, and I really fancied that after school. But I wasn't in anything to do with music particularly. I love music and I was a big consumer of it, but I didn't. But I had a drum kit, which had kind of various youth club kind of bands in Newport, but I didn't even bother to take it up to Leeds with me. But as soon as I got up there, the punk rock thing broke, and immediately people were asking me, I said, I've got a drum kit. Oh, you should bring it up here. We should have a band. So, and I ended up joining the Mekons because they were kind of like my mates and the people I was at art school with. And I thought, well, a lot of people were kind of jumping on the punk bandwagon. A lot of muso-y kind of people who could play really well were trying to pretend they couldn't play well. The Mekons were interesting because they couldn't play at all. And it gave me the opportunity to be the best musician in the band. And I wasn't very good.
But you were the guy with the drum kit, and that's always when everybody's
I tell you what, I was never so in demand in my life as I was in 1977 in Leeds. People really wanted me.
That's crazy.
Till they heard me play.
And right in your same circle, the Gang of Four and Delta 5 were right there at the same time, starting up when the Mekons.
No, the Delta 5 was a bit later. But Gang of Four, actually, the reason I brought my drum kit up was because somebody, one of the guys who was in the Mekons, Andy Corrigan, said, "Oh, my mate's forming a band, and they're going to be." This is the first day I got to Leeds. He said, "My mate's forming a band. They're going to be a cross between the Velvet Underground and Dr. Feelgood."
Oh my God!
And and I was like, "Oh, really?" So I met Andy. Was like a third year, I think, in the art department when I was the first year. So I met him, and they had a rehearsal room. Well, they used the University of Leeds Fine Art Film Society room, and it was next to the Fenton pub on Woodhurst Lane. So we'd be in the pub drinking because that was the art school pub that we used to frequent. And then they'd come down and we'd see them come down. We said, "Can we go up and use your instruments?" And they'd just give us the key and we'd go up and play for an hour while they were having a drink. You pick up their equipment, their guitars and their drum kit and play. And then we ended up something happened with the Mekons that somehow we got a single out before the Gang of Four, which was not the plan.
1, 2, 3, 4. I'm never getting in a fight. I'm never getting in a fight. I'm gonna need everything. Hands out right. Hands out right. Hands out right. When it's time for broken balls, the corner stretch the boys. I'm always in the toilet, missing out the noise. Missing out the noise. Missing out the noise. I was in there fighting the cup. I was eyeing up the hill. When in comes the big police, getting their bike and drill. Getting their bike and drill. Getting their bike and drill. Never been in a riot. Never been in a fight. I'm gonna need everything. Turns out right. Turns out right. Turns out right. Time for broken bottles, and they call us stretch the boys. I'm always in the toilet, missing out the noise. Missing out the noise. Missing out the noise. Business like a cat. I was eyeing up the hill. When in comes the big police, getting their bike and drill. Getting their bike and drill. Getting their bike and drill.
And then, they got a record out. We started getting play on John Peel. Things got serious. We got offers for gigs. We got a rehearsal room together. It was kind of like a commune sort of thing for a while, where we shared everything. We put all the money back into the building up the rehearsal room. And, it was very idealistic. Lots of long meetings where people sat around using long words, and it was very political, and it was very sort of austere on one level. We were quite harsh in terms of what we expected out of the whole thing and what we saw as the world and the music business. But then it was also hilarious as well, because we were kids and there was a lot of drunkenness and bad behavior. So
It's a fantastic time. I mean, God, I can't even imagine 77 in England then. I mean,
actually, looking back on it, I've talked about it a lot. As the years go by, people seem to find it more interesting, and I often I'm feeling I wasn't really that happy. It wasn't that great.
Well, I mean, yeah,
I was young, and it was sort of exciting, but it was also, there was a sort of permanent threat of violence and danger, and I don't know. We were just kids, and Leeds was a really harsh, nasty place.
Yeah,
I think of it in sort of black and white. All the images you see, and I look at photos from that time, and it's hard to believe they're taken in my lifetime. Oh my God, it was grim.
Yeah, well, you
grim.
were, it looks like that you were able to use your art and your music to have a little outlet from all that.
Yeah, I guess so. We basically, punk was very exciting, but it was also quite competitive and immature.
Yeah.
So it was a complicated thing.
Yeah.
I don't look back on it with amazing fondness. I don't sort of sit around thinking, God, I wish I was back then in Leeds. I sort of survived it. It was all right. It was great, and we did great things, but we kind of weren't really aware. I wish I'd been more aware, because I wish I'd had an iPhone at the time, because I would have filmed all the gigs I went to.
Right. Because
when we came to make the Mekons documentary film, came out a few years ago, there was no footage of the Mekons. No one. The BBC had a little bit of us in our rehearsal room, which they wanted like vast amounts of money for us to use. And the only footage we actually had of the band playing live was the very last gig when we played in New York, and they had a kind of internal video system at Hurrahs, and somebody filmed us. And somebody bothered to keep the tape.
Wow.
So there's film of us and the Gang of Four from that night, but it's not even it's not even the proper Mekons because our bass player had left, so we had Jane from the Au Pairs playing bass with us. And and we were all kind of fully aware that it's our last gig, so we were kind of not taking it that seriously. It was like this kind of, so I see photos of, earlier gigs, again, all black and white, and there's a sort of intensity to it that I kind of remember. And it was exciting. It could be really good, but there was also, like I said, you might be sitting in your dressing room and a gang of some other band's fans might run in and beat you all senseless.
Jesus.
What happened in Newcastle? Tom got his nose broken one night at a Rock Against Racism benefit, and I had loads of friends. There was a lot of that sort of level of street violence was really, really prevalent. And then the Fenton, the pub we drank in, one night I wasn't there, but Hugo from the Gang of Four was there. I forget where we were. We might have been out on the road or something, but just fascists came in and smashed the whole place up.
Holy crap.
What a guy throwing glasses, beating people. A guy lost an eye. It was a hideous.
Damn. So, like you said, competitive, and different points of view.
Yeah. I mean, I really like the Rock Against Racism movement. That was really good, and that kind of, as well as being a very positive thing, which actually I think in the limited time it existed, actually it kind of won the battle and it won the debate, but it also spawned a lot of spaces, safe spaces, where people could actually perform and develop. So we had a Rock Against Racism club at the Polytechnic in Leeds, and then we did their big tour in 1980 in 79. They had a big tour when they went all around the country, and it was tons of bands on that. We did a lot of the bigger gigs with them, and I think it was in 1980 when the Specials came and played in Leeds, and the Specials really represented something very, very amazing. I think they represented what life was really like on the street. Black kids and white kids coming together.
Yeah,
that's what punk had done, and they kind of perfected it. And they had that song Ghost Town. It was #1, and they played in the park by my house in Chapeltown. Well, not while I didn't live there at the time. When I moved there, I moved right over there later. But a big West Indian, South Asian area of East Leeds, massive population of immigrant people, and it was just the most incredible day. I remember Mekons played. We played on a truck driving around, and then the Specials were there. I think maybe it was 81. I can't remember.
Wow.
I think it was not in the summer of 81, but it was kind of like, wow, this political campaign, usually like the miners' strike or campaigns against like unemployment, you feel like you're fighting a rear guard action, where you're never going to actually see any change. But it kind of really sort of ended the fashion of young people being right wing at the time. I think they realized this is much more fun than being a freaking fascist.
Right.
And it for a moment there in the 80s in Leeds, it was a really, the fascists were kind of on the run, and even by the end of the late 80s, the local football team had, with the help of trade unions and the police, had rooted out all the fascist supporters and banned them from the club. So it was like a nice place to go and watch football instead of somewhere you're taking your life into your hands, or you had to listen to foul racist chanting. It was quite, it was quite a positive thing. So I say nasty things about Leeds, but I lived there till 92. But but by the mid 80s, I had a house there, but I was barely there. Yeah. When I had the Three Johns playing, and then the Mekons sort of made that second wave of the Mekons, all from about 83 onwards. And then we started in 85, we started coming to the States, and really I didn't live anywhere.
And I didn't even realize that the first wave of the Mekons even made it to the States. But you say that the last show of the sort of original.
Yeah, the Gang of Four had a show at Hurrah's, a sort of legendary nightclub in New York, and it was New Year's Eve 81, and the Mekons, we actually went on in 1980 and came off in 1981. And at that point, we'd been sacked by Virgin Records. The band had done a few European tours in 1980, and me and Tom had gone back to art school because it was financially it was the best option. Because in those days, under a vaguely socialist system, you got paid to go to college rather than having to pay.
Yeah.
That seems like another lifetime as well.
God, different world there.
Sounds like I'm sorry, kids. Sorry, kids. I'm not making this up.
What
but it's true.
that?
So we actually, we went back. We went back, and actually that year, I really got into being an art student and painting. I did a lot of painting,
and then
I really enjoyed it. And finished my degree and just decided to stay in Leeds. But
and then you mentioned the Three Johns. That was kind of happening simultaneously. Or was there a layoff?
For a while? Well, no, actually, no. I think the Mekons kind of stopped, and in '82, the Three Johns sort of kicked in, and it was a couple of guys who were, me and Tom left art school. We basically ended up, we were gone for about 18 months, then we came back. So then we were in a different class, different year. And then there was guys in that year that we vaguely knew. We fell in with them more. And there was a guy called John Diamond and John Hyatt, and we formed the Three Johns. And then we had a mate who used to come along and pick up the bass guitar when somebody dropped it, and he played. And then John Diamond left, but we were the Three Johns because everyone referred to us as the Three Johns. It wasn't like a name of a band. It was just name of us as three people because we were pretty tight and just hung around together all the time.
Yeah.
And then Brenny joined, whose name wasn't John, but suddenly we had a record out, and again it was like the same thing happened again. Put a little record out on a little label. John Peel really liked it, started playing it, offered us sessions. We started getting gigs, good reviews, and suddenly I was a guitar player. Well, the Johns went to the States first in '85. The Johns came
as a headliner.
Yeah, we did a tour.
Wow.
Actually, Leslie from the Au Pairs was the opening act.
Oh wow.
As a solo performer, it was quite a. So both times I came to the States at that point was with somebody from the Au Pairs.
Yeah.
But it was a strange tour. Yeah, we were on airplanes. We used to do these vouchers at the time where you could just fly everywhere. So we had gigs every day, but basically wherever we were, we'd have to get up and get to the airport in the morning. And I think they had these vouchers with Delta, so something that was hubbed in Detroit anyway. So if we were playing in Seattle and we had to get to San Francisco, we'd have to go via Detroit.
Jeez.
So we'd be like, every day was like a transatlantic flight, and all we ever saw of anywhere was kind of hotels. I remember going back to Leeds and friends saying, "What was LA like?" I was going like, LA, what was it like? Well, it was a taxi from an airport to a radio station to a gig, and the hotel was directly behind the back door of the gig, so we could use that as a dressing room. And then we got a taxi to the airport. So I don't know. I didn't see anything of LA.
Yeah.
But we had friends in Chicago. A mate of ours, Terry Nelson, had been over in England in '83, and he kind of organized the gig in Chicago and organized a mate of his who had a mobile recording studio to record it. So we played the Metro, which is a big club in Chicago. The first time I set foot in Chicago, we went directly to this club, Metro on Clark Street. And the guy who, I met so many of my friends now that night. It's really odd. The guy who was the owner of the club is a really close friend of mine still. And we made a great live album. It was kind of the band at its peak. And we sort of hung around for a while, and we were staying with people, and we got to see somewhere. And Chicago really reminded me of, I don't know, the places I'd lived before compared to everywhere else in America. It felt like, a bit of a Rust Belt industrial town, a bit like Manchester or something, or Wales, where people don't really care what's going on in London, and it's like that's the feeling that I had about Chicago. It's like, it's not all LA and New York. These people in Chicago are completely self-sufficient and in a kind of much more grounded way. And it's like the industry wasn't really there, and all the people I met were very supportive and enthusiastic. And it was it was why I ended up, moving there sort of 8 years later, or whenever I did. But I was there every year in Chicago from '85 through to when I moved there. And I just realized at that time it was a cheap place to live, and it was, people weren't crawling over each other to succeed. People were actually enthusiasts, club owners, journalists, record labels, other musicians. People were kind of in it for, the fun of it, and it was great place for me to end up.
Yeah, what an amazing art community, and you found it and fit.
Yeah, it was kind of accidental in a way, but I didn't really know what I was going to do, because by the time I moved to the States in '92, I got married, and my girlfriend at the time was living in France, and then I'd known her for quite a long time. We got together while she was living in France, but she was from Chicago. And then when she moved back to Chicago, I just said, I'll just come and live there, because
Perfect, yeah.
I don't feel like I live anywhere, because we toured literally in years like 1988 and '89. I don't know how much touring we did. Just constantly on the road all the time.
Yeah. So the first wave of the Mekons stops at some point, and the Three Johns goes for a while, and then something happens, and you want to start the Mekons again. What was that restart? What happened?
We never really split up, but we just weren't really doing anything.
But it was
a couple
really
of key people had left.
Right.
But
a completely new band other than Tom and you.
Well, it was me and Kevin and Mark for a while.
On the first, that's right. Right on the
yeah,
first
and we did a thing called the English Dancing Master with a
right.
guy called John Gill, who engineered the second Mekons record.
Yes.
And he'd been a guy who had one foot very firmly in the kind of folk world, but had been the engineer on some of the Sex Pistols demos with Dave Goodman. And it's like, he was just a really interesting guy. We loved him. He died quite a long time ago, but he was just a fabulous person. And he was the person. Well, the weird thing was, when we did our second album, we were about to get dropped by Virgin. We didn't know, but we just decided we'd work completely differently and all make up stuff in the studio and all play different instruments and just see what happened and not have just deconstruct the band as like it had been set up and make something else completely different. And our manager looked in the yellow pages and found a studio, just said studio in Halifax, and we thought that'd be nice, just get out of town a bit, go into the hills. So we went there, and it turns out it was basically this guy Bill Leader who did a few demos for us. When we first went there, he was like the Alan Lomax of Britain.
Wow.
He produced records for me, like the first Bert Jansch record he'd recorded.
Jeez.
And we had no, we didn't really know what all that was, but I would poke around in his storeroom next to his studio and see all these tapes and these boxes of records, and got talking to him. And Virgin dropped us right in the middle of all that. We owed him loads of money, and he suggested John Gill as an engineer and got him to come in. And I remember with Bill sitting down and saying, like, all right then, seeing as we've got all this money, maybe we'll have to put the record out. We were like, oh no, you don't have to do that. But having said it, I think he had this label called Tractor, which is one of the legendary British folk labels, and it would have been such a cool thing to do, but we didn't even know enough about it to understand. But him and John, who talked to us about it, they really liked the Mekons, and they talked to us about it. And they said we were like a folk band. It was folk music because our limitations and the mistakes we made, we'd incorporated them, and they had not held us back, and we'd used our limitations to make this music because we had to make the music, and the music was functional because it served a community. Therefore, we were folk music, and it was like, oh, I never thought about anything like that. And they, they re-explained what we were to us, because we thought we were year zero punks and that we were just inventing the wheel and changing the world. And then they point out all these other bands, like, oh yeah, there's bands like, have you ever heard the Fugs? And we're like, no, who's the Fugs? And yeah, you like reggae? Have you heard this? Have you heard Cajun music? So we'd be in this studio. We booked it for 6 weeks in the studio at Leadersound in Elland, Halifax. Basically, it was like a tutorial where
that was like
we had our minds blown.
Yeah, you got kind of molded a little bit there, or just set into a new direction by these guys.
Well, they put what we were doing in a context. We didn't understand what we were doing, then we saw it in a context. And then Terry Nelson, the guy that was my friend in Chicago, who we met in '83, and then he organized that gig for us with the three Johns. He did the same thing with the Mekons. He said the Mekons were like a country and western band. We were like, well, that's not very ridiculous. We hate country music. I said, I hate that stuff. It's terrible. No, he says, all these songs are like 2 chords, 3 chords, and they're all about drinking in bars and failed sexual relationships. And we were like, oh, they are, aren't they? But then I got into country music as well. I think there was a lot of things. We weren't just, there was a kind of country movement in Britain at the time of cowpunk, which was kind of kitschy, and people were dressing up in dungarees and putting straw in their hair and going yee-haw a lot. But we were very much the other end of that. We were like not trying to sound like country music, but listening to it a lot, and taking people like Jimmy Rogers and Ernest Tubb, people at Terry, Cash, obviously, Merle Haggard, George Jones, taking them very, very seriously, and listening, the lyrics, just thinking very much about something like Jimmy Rogers' lyrics, how they were kind of like from this pool of, folk and blues that didn't, where authorship didn't really matter. People were like, lyrics would turn up in different songs by different artists. It was all very exciting to us, so that was all going on, and we decided to do the English Dancing Master in a little studio I'd been working at in Bridlington by the seaside, which was fun. And we just took a drum machine and we tried to make some version of kind of like English country dance music, which Bill had made some of the classic recordings. And we thought, let's have a sort of drum machine reggae beat with kind of English country tunes. So John played the squeeze box, John Gill, and the violin, and then I played a little bit of piano. Tom could play a little bit of piano, and that's what we made that record. I think that was the record that really turned everything around. and we wrote Last Dance and No Country were on that record,
Yeah.
which I thought were really great songs. And then after that, we didn't really know what we were doing. Then the miners' strike happened, and I was away with the three Johns in Europe, and Tom said, I've been offered a gig for the Mekons to play a benefit for the miners. And I was going, you should do it. He says, well, I don't know, but you're going to be away. I said, yeah, I'm away for a month. I said, just, he said, well, Jim Chapman was the Gang of Four's tour manager. He said, he's going to help me put something together. So we'll get Kevin, and we had Susie, and we had Dick Taylor had been doing stuff with us. And then we said, well, we just need a rhythm section, because I said, well, I can't play the drums. I won't be able to do the drum machine. So he suggested Steve, who'd been drumming with the Gang of Four. Yeah. And then Lou was kind of mates with Jim as well. And Lou really wanted to do it. Steve really didn't want to do it. They came to see the Mekons play a gig with the drum machine in some bar. And it was just the four of us, and we were all completely fucking hammered. And Steve just said it was the worst thing he'd ever seen in his life, and refused point blank to have anything to do with us. But see how that worked out. He got sucked in. But I came back from this European tour, and they'd done about 3 miners benefits without me, and it was really cool. Suddenly I'm like, well, we've got a band, and Tom had actually written a couple of songs as well to go with it. So I started writing a few things. And then we had the stuff for the English Dancing Master, which we'd written together. And I was like, yeah, let's try, maybe we should record this. And that's where Fear and Whiskey, what Fear and Whiskey came from.
And they're just...
And we actually did that. We actually had, we'd already started recording Fear and Whiskey. And then we had the second side was just recorded in one afternoon.
God.
With Steve and Lou, me, Kevin, Tom, and Susie and Dick Taylor. So pretty much without Sally there, pretty much
it had formed. Yeah,
it was the same band as we have now, pretty much.
Yeah, and it was just so it was so vital, and it still is. You listen to that and you go, gosh, it's so. You were working on creativity. It was just oozing out of you guys. The being excited about what you were doing, and with these influences that were hitting all you guys at the same time, it just really was the perfect storm, you might say.
Well, it was a lot of, there was a lot of absorbing other influences, but there wasn't imitation. I think that's why it sounds fresh, because we weren't trying to sound like anything. We just let it go. But we put these things together, and we gave the actual players a lot of freedom to just do what they wanted to do. And I think as well, all those records in that period from we did make a kind of a weird album called The Mekons Story in '82, and that was just a couple of us sitting around with synthesizers fucking around. Mm-hmm. And we did a bit of that, some more of that in Bridlington. That's why we decided to go and do the English Dancing Master, because we liked the stuff we'd done using machines and acoustic instruments. And then by the time we were making Fear and Whiskey, nothing much had really changed in terms of the band's popularity. We were very, very disliked in Britain. after we'd been on Virgin. You know, we'd been the kind of flavor of the month when Where Were You came out. We'd signed to Virgin Records and been seen to publicly totally fall flat on our faces. And we were kind of like a joke. And we'd laid low, but we, still went out to the pub together. So it was like, well, we are still a band. We still see each other all the time. We might as well try doing things. But I think the stuff we made was the product of the fact we were making something, one, bloody mindedly saying, well, we still exist, even though you don't want us to exist. We still exist. But also kind of thinking, well, no one's going to listen anyway because no one cares about us. So no one's going to hear this. So we can do whatever we want.
And that's maybe
that was very freeing. There was
Yeah.
absolutely no pressure.
I was just going to say that kind of defines your whole career, where you're making music for yourself alone, and we'll see if others enjoy it. And
yeah, well, it did. It picked up sort of word of mouth.
Yeah.
It was like it wasn't like insular music, or it was very much we were trying to communicate.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We really didn't. We were just really following instincts and kind of not. We weren't catering for anyone. We didn't have a picture of who might like it.
A neat thing that I always enjoyed about those records and about a lot of the Mekons stuff is the use of influences from literature in your lyrical contents and stuff, and you'll just kind of throw little things in, and it makes us as fans go and try to find some, where that came from and stuff. It was always fun.
Yeah, there was a lot of thieving.
It's borrowing, homage, they call that.
Well, I don't know. I think for us it was we were also, in the 90s we were working with Kathy Acker, who kind of actively, liked the idea of plagiarism. And we were also very much against authorship in the sense that, as I said earlier, looking at all these songs, these old folk songs, how they appeared to be just coming out of the ground, the words. It wasn't like there was an author. Everyone was using the same phrases and the same stories. And there was a lot of similarities between songs. There was only kind of a pop music thing where people started slapping their names on them and saying, I wrote this, I own this. I thought, we love the idea of folk music as being almost an oral history,
Yeah.
So we were broadening it by, just bringing in shit from the things we were reading,
Right.
We were, college educated intellectuals. We weren't going to pretend to be, backwoodsmen or anything like that.
Yeah.
But sometimes you'd open a book. Three Johns used to do that as well. You'd take things, just open a page of a book and start singing it.
Yeah, it's almost like the old Bowie cards that you throw the cards on the floor.
Yeah. The oblique strategies
cards.
Oblique strategies. Oh, it's like William Burroughs, when he cut up. but it's funny, I don't know. Even though that we had very odd ways of making them song, we were always trying to change the way we wrote songs, and there was always sort of, I don't know. I look back at the songs now, and they all seem to have some kind of purpose to them, you
Sure
know.
do. So at some point, like you say, you moved to Chicago, and it doesn't. Everybody in the band is kind of in different places. So the rest, there might be, I don't know. I've never counted, I don't think, but there might be like 20 Mekons records, right? Something like that.
Or actual proper albums,
Yeah.
yeah, something like that.
And so a lot of those records are made over a long period of time. Your latest one is just this last year, right?
In 2019,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
Deserted.
and so everybody's all over the world, and it's hard to get together, but you kind of. I noticed you said earlier about at one point making a record, you found this little studio, and you guys went to this place, and it kind of inspired you. I think was that in Halifax you were saying or something like that?
Yeah, Leader Sound,
And
yeah.
so I've noticed you've kind of done that a few times over at different
Well,
times in your
it's
career.
the sites. Well, we have to work in kind of blocks. We have to try and find a time where everyone's available, and then we have to work very intensely. And it makes a lot more sense if you're in a city,
Yeah.
and you got to find ways to house people, and you got to get transport them to the studio. If we go other places where there's maybe a residential thing, or it's just, it's kind of more intense. So
Right.
we've done things where not in conventional studio. We've just rented houses and recorded there.
And a new
So
inspiration. You know, your
yeah,
surroundings are a new, like the latest record. Where was it? In the
yeah,
California desert, right?
in a Joshua Tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very, that was very much. We were very conscious that would be there's an opportunity to go to a certain place to record, and we knew it would be good for us. We just knew that. I mean, I'd been to the, you know, Yucca Tree, what is it called, Yucca Valley, and it's like, yeah, this would be good. This would be a place for the Mekons. And when you're all together, you're all stuck together, and you talk, eat, sleep in the same building, and then record. It's pretty. You get a lot done.
And
It takes on. It consumes you.
yeah.
You can allow yourself to be consumed. You can get rid of all the other pressures that would be upon you, like get your kids to school and stuff like that. But we were meant to go to Spain in April, and we bought the tickets
Oh,
and sorted out the places to stay and a recording studio, and everything. But that all obviously got cancelled.
yeah.
So we've been tinkering remotely, trying to see if we can go the opposite way and make an album.
Oh, yeah.
Make an album where we don't see anyone face to face.
Jeez, this thing has changed so much in the music industry.
Yeah.
Man, but
And there's no gigs.
right, which is your most musicians, the most important income is out on the road.
Yeah, pretty much a lot of the time. But I mean, yeah, I'm lucky because I still do paint and I still
Right.
have a kind of sideline with that. But so many of my friends are just like they've been chopped off at the knees. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
Ugh.
It's and it's not just the musicians; it's the people who run the bars, the venues,
Oh.
people who work in them, people who work at the ballpark, people who who work in restaurants. There's a lot. I mean, most people were struggling beforehand. People having to work 2 or 3 jobs to get by,
Right.
and so then this comes along. It's I don't know. There's a lot. It's a lot
Yeah,
to take in.
it feels
I
like
don't think. I think I love the way people have been activated over the last couple of weeks, and people are basically asking for something that the government is not willing to provide. Like justice. But there's a whole shopping list.
oh my God.
Housing, education. Like the gig economy, like workers' rights. This country's got so far off track, and people are seeing it now. And if COVID's done anything, it's really taken a veil off
Yeah, well,
some of the.
we have so many people out of work, and then you have an opportunity to hit the streets. What do they expect's going to happen, when people have the opportunity, before they had the excuse, well, I got to go to work.
Yeah,
Less excuse. You can go get out on the street now, so we can voice our opinions now. So there is a lot more opportunity to do it. It was just one of those moments that it had to happen, and it's hard to deal with. It's hard to watch it go, but I mean, I'm with you as far as I'm sure I'm keeping my positive attitude that it's all going to be.
well, I think I forget who said it. Someone said the other day, it's just like this is just the start of something.
Oh yeah.
This not going to be a victory. This is not going to be a victory. It's the start of something. But put your seatbelt on because it's going to be like a ride.
Yep. It could
And
get.
there's so much fucking stuff now. If we can have the city of Minneapolis consider disbanding the police department because of how corrupt and unreformable it is. There's
Yeah.
all sorts of. You can change people's. Sometimes attitudes change in a heartbeat. You know. So I don't know. Anything's possible.
Yeah.
But of
So.
course, they will resist.
Oh yeah. They're not gonna. They're gonna. It's like they're a badger in a corner. You get ready for the fight.
Yeah.
Let's continue. We got a little sidetracked there. No problem at all. We can talk about whatever we want to talk about, but I want to talk more about your projects because I call you the hardest working man in rock and roll. You've done so many different projects over the years, including your art. Your art,
Yeah, I like to keep busy.
yeah, your art is an amazing style. Your graphic art. I wish I could show it in a podcast, but I can't. But I recommend anybody going to Jon's websites or on the net and looking at Jon Langford's art because it's amazing. It's a unique style, and I've always loved it so much. You've done tons of album covers and your own album covers and other people's album covers, and I always know it's you because it's just a look that nobody else even comes near.
Thank you. Well, I've downed brushes for punk rock, and then when I landed in Chicago, I fell in with some artists and people that were saying, "Well, what have you never done?" I said, "I've never done an art show. Never thought about it." "Well, we've seen your art on the record sleeves. You can draw." And I was going, "Why don't you do an art show?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know what I'd do, you know. And it became, I realized it was actually a lack of confidence.
Yeah.
And I had no lack of confidence with writing songs and getting up on stage. You know, that
Yeah.
wasn't a problem. It was going, why am I can get up and make a fool of myself in public and write songs that make sense. I just suddenly thought, well, why don't I try and do paintings that echo elements of the songs?
Yeah.
And I was also inspired by particularly crappy developments in my local art school back in Newport. I went to a final show of, like, you know, people's artwork, and they sort of abolished life drawing, painting, printmaking, sculpture in favor of computer art.
Wow.
This is like 1991 or something, 92.
Jeez.
And I was just like, oh my God. And I just thought the work was terrible. And it was a bunch of kids being forced to use, you know, at the time, the computer, you know, software was pretty not so good.
Yeah.
And I said, is that what artists are? And they were all like, you know, starry-eyed about how they were totally in line with the new technology. And it was just like, oh my God, do we have to be idiots as well, you know? Artists, you know, like emperor's new clothes. Like, look at this, and it's just like, yeah, you've made a load of artwork that is just designed by some techs in some computer software company. You know,
It's crazy.
and I thought, well, maybe I should go back to actual painting. I said, I always really liked drawing and painting, and I always did it as a kid. I just drew, and I didn't know why I was doing it. And even when I went to Leeds University, I didn't really know why I was doing it. I didn't have a purpose to it, but I'd worked out with music that, you know, about communication, and I felt the songs were in, you know, and the way we played and the way we interacted and the way we dealt with the music business. I thought the whole thing was got the Mekons was a kind of big statement. You know,
Yeah.
we worked on loads of different levels, and I tried to think of a way I could actually make art that fulfilled all the same kind of criteria, that all ticked the same boxes we did with the Mekons, and that's what I've been trying to do. And then at some point, you know, I kicked down the walls that separated the two practices in my brain and realized that songs and paintings and ideas, a lot of the songs are very visual that I write, and a lot of the paintings are chock full of, you know, ideas for songs. So
Yeah, one feeds the other. Yeah, the art feeds
yeah,
the music feeds the art. It all
yeah,
connect.
yeah. That's the sort of area I got to. So it's good, you know. I think I cross-pollinated, and I do it when I go out and have an art show. I always perform with it, and I always have kind of artwork which has, you know, lyrics in it, or song paintings, you know, paintings that are you know, that are this kind of are the song. You know, it's hard to explain that. It's hard to explain it because they are obviously different, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously then making records and making the artwork for records is also what was really exciting about punk. You know, just the simple thing of the picture sleeve, a 7-inch picture sleeve. I loved that when I was like 18, 19 years old.
I still
I
love it.
thought that was so cool. And you could go and you could save up enough money to buy one picture, you know, not an album, just one. It was one song with a cool picture sleeve. Singles when I was, you know, really young just came in plain sleeves with just the label.
Yep.
And then suddenly it was like this explosion, and people like the Buzzcocks and, you know, Sex Pistols, Clash, having really cool artwork on their singles. I wanted to do that. So now my latest project, if we're skipping ahead.
I was just going to ask about the Lucky 7 series. Please tell us.
Yeah, that's kind of the love of the 7-inch, you know.
Soldiers coming home from another holy war. Did you fight to win, or are you losers? Walk back into a game show where the fortunate will spend and beggars won't be choosers. Well, I'll walk a mile in your shoes
and to make.
What's it gonna consist of exactly?
Um, well, the guy, it's the record label. It's called Tiny Global Productions, and they're based in Valencia in Spain. But it's an American guy who I've known a long time and who's been involved in a um, bunch of Mekons stuff. John Henderson. He put out a single. Me and Martin Brammer. He was living in Budapest a few years ago, and Martin Brammer was the original guitar player from the Fall.
Yeah.
I came with him to see a show of mine in Belgrade, and dragged me off and took me back to Budapest, where Martin was working on some. He was working on recreating some lost demos, because after he left the Fall, he made a load of recordings of songs he'd written that Mark Smith didn't want to do or whatever. Yeah. But then somehow they got lost over the years. But he wanted to kind of record those songs in a similar style. And John had the idea that maybe I should play drums on them, because I hadn't evolved as a drummer in any way since about 1980. I was going, I'd be perfect. I mean, we got on really well. So we made it. He played on a song of mine. We made a single, and John put it out. And it did all right. You know, it kind of broke even. Put a 7-inch single out, totally in a vacuum. Jon Langford and Martin Brammer. And people bought it, and it was one of his songs on one side, mine on the other.
Cool.
And it was, and we just talked about it. What really inspired it was both John Henderson and I really love what Rough Trade did with Robert Wyatt.
Oh, yes.
In the 70s,
Some
early
of my favorite
80s.
Stuff too, yeah.
Yeah, and they just said, we'll give you money to go. He wasn't doing anything. I don't know. I think he suffers from depression, Robert Wyatt. Can be very active, and they were just saying he wasn't doing anything. Somebody talked to him and said, "Oh, I'm not doing anything anymore. I've given up. Can't be bothered." I said, "Well, if we gave you money, would you make an album?" And he was like, "Oh, no, that's too." He couldn't get his head around making an album. And they said, "Well, what about if you just did a single?" And then they did one single. They said, "We'll give you more money. Would you make another single?" And they put him out. And I think it's his best album.
Yeah.
Is that one, Nothing Can Stop Us.
Yep.
And I got to the point where I felt like that as well. I felt lots of ideas and lots of projects and lots of things I want to do and lots of collaborations. But everyone was like, "Wow, you could do an album." You know, like me and Kat from the X did an album.
Yeah.
You know, but it took a long time, and it was like a lot of effort. But possibly it would have been better if we'd done a couple of singles, you know, rather than having to spend so much time and do something. I suddenly realized that, yeah, that thing with the choir I'm doing, I've got that going on. I'm doing another project with a keyboard player in Chicago about, you know, kind of Native American history, where in the kind of square mile I live in Chicago and stuff like this. All these different weird projects.
Wow.
Now, if you just make a single, you can just get it done and move on to the next one, and not be like. I felt the real pressure of being, you know, like trying to finish albums, you know,
right.
Going and mixing 12 tracks or more, you know, the Hubie Monsters thing. We did like 18 tracks to sort of pick the best ones, and it's like, I don't know, it just seems a pointless exercise.
Yeah.
So with this now, John decided we're going to do 23 singles, and he said all along, I don't care if it loses money. It's an art project. This is an art project.
So cool.
We're going to lose money. Don't worry about the expense, and we'll do what's needed for each single. We'll put it out. We want to put them out as a limited edition, and if people want them, they can buy them, and then at the end of it, maybe we'll put some of them out as an album. You know, and that's great. So it's kind of no pressure.
This sounds.
So I've got three of them. I've got 3 of them recorded already, but they're all with different. And what we liked about the Robert Wyatt thing was some of the songs he wasn't even on it. It was one. It's a guy reading a poem about Stalingrad, you know,
yeah.
Which is a great point on the album, but it's just a poet reading a poem. So I was thinking about that, and then my mate Yossa was the singer in the X for many years. GW Sock was his name when he was the X from Amsterdam. It's a band I produced a bunch of albums for them over the years, and he saw a Facebook post that I made on the 50th anniversary of the Aberfan disaster. So that must have been in 2016, October the 21st, 2016, 50 years of this terrible industrial disaster where 116 kids were killed at a school when a coal slag heap collapsed on the school. and I was the same age. For me, it was like those kids were the same age I was, and it was only about 20 miles from where I grew up. So I was, affected by that my whole life, and it really, in the 60s as well, had a big effect on me. So when I flew back over to go up there for the 50th anniversary. My cousin um, came with me and some other friends, and I remember waking up that morning in my cousin's spare room. But I woke up at 5 in the morning. It was raining. It was really miserable. I was really dreading going. I didn't know what it was going to be like, and I was having all these strange thoughts about this. I've flown all the way across the Atlantic to go and sort of share these people's misery, and I'm being a voyeur. What is this? But I realized it was so much. I just thought about it, and I tried to write down what I was thinking. I thought, well, maybe I'll just post what I'm thinking on Facebook. Maybe that's what it's useful for.
Right.
And then Yoss saw it because it was his birthday that day, and he saw it, and he got asked to do a project with a band called Omar from England, who were an electronic band, and they wanted him to bring some lyrics. So he took my Facebook post and he recorded it without telling me.
Oh man!
Then he sent it to me as a surprise. And it's really great. Wow. And I said, what are you going to do with this? You putting it out? He said, they're going to put it out, but they might use it on some projects. I said, could I put it out? And he's going, all right, yeah. I said, I'm doing this. I told him about this project, and sent it to John Henderson. He was just completely over the moon because it was like we were totally on the same page.
Today is my birthday and the 50th anniversary of the Aberfan disaster. The most traumatizing, haunting, formative event of my generation. 116 of my peers wiped out by a choking black tsunami of mining waste, cynically piled above their primary school. This was the 60s. The Beatles and the Stones, Bobby Moore and England's World Cup, the space race and Doctor Who. But all the pictures I see from 50 years ago are in black and white. People digging in the murdering black filth, tears and rain. Too late.
So the Lucky 7 series will be available soon. You can pre-order it now, right?
Yeah, the first 3 singles, I think we would get them. You can get. They're going to do them in chunks of 3,
yeah.
I think.
Will that song?
I don't know how that works if we're doing 23.
Right. Will that song you were just talking about be in the first 3?
Abernant 66 is the B side or the double A side of Losers.
Cool.
And then the next one is. I'm trying to think what's the next one. Yeah, the next one will be a song called Hey Rockstar, which is with Skull Orchard, and then a different sort of version of Skull Orchard doing another track on the other side, and then the next one is 2 songs, one a John Cale cover, and then one a song I wrote with the male voice choir.
Cool.
And then we'll just keep trying to mix it up as we go along.
Sounds fantastic. And you saying it doesn't necessarily have to have me, Jon Langford, on the recording makes me think of maybe my favorite project you've ever done in your life, and that's For Lost Souls. In being involved in that band and recording, you're all over it, but you let other members of the band take front seat, which is kind of what you've always done through your career, John. And with the Mekons, you did that too.
Well, I would say with the Wake Up Brothers, it's nice because you're not singing. I'm not singing all the songs, and I get to be the guitar player on some songs. And then with the Mekons, exactly the same. The solo thing's always been kind of hard, and I don't quite like that spotlight on my voice. I think my voice sounds better with other voices, and I can do certain things, but
I think
So
you've used the old saying, "Variety is the spice of life," to its best. You've used that your whole career.
yeah, well, it's to collaborate with other
Yeah,
people. Is
yeah.
music is really great for that. Art's not. Art is tougher, more problematic, but you put a few people together who can vaguely play something, and they'll make something. And it's just like this. It's like a language. You can just make something.
No, 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 don't turn that dial. You're all in for a big surprise. You're never gonna believe who we got here. Had no idea he was still alive. I thought he was dead, but he sang Storm on the Ocean. Storm on the ocean, moving his own way. It's getting so you can't afford to die. But he sang Storm on the ocean. Storm on the ocean, moving his own way. There's 95 or 96 dollars right here in an envelope for you.
And I got employed by the Country Music Hall of Fame to make some artwork for them for the exhibit, Johnny Cash, Bob Dylan, Nashville Cats exhibit in 2015 in Nashville at the Country Music Hall of Fame. And I went down. I thought they just pay me. I do some artwork and they pay me. But the people who hired me were aware that I was a musician as well, and were aware of the Waco Brothers, and knew we did some Johnny Cash songs. And they had a concert on the opening night and said, "Would you come down and sing with the Nashville Cats? Pick a couple of Johnny Cash songs and do them." And I was like, "Oh, that's very interesting. I would love to do that." So I was part. They actually. I didn't know anything about the Country Music Hall of Fame, wasn't very interested in it particularly, but found out it was this very passionate, scholarly place,
Yeah.
The museum side of it was they really, really loved the music. And then Norbert Putnam was one of the original Nashville Cats. He played in, with, I don't think he ever played with Bob Dylan, but he played with Charlie McCoy and David Briggs. He was a Muscle Shoals guy, and he was the only one that weekend when I took the family down. We stayed in the Hilton opposite the Country Music Hall of Fame, and Norbert. I walked back after a rehearsal with him, and because he said, "I'm staying at the Hilton as well." I said, "Everybody else lives in Nashville." He said, "I moved back to Muscle Shoals." So he lives in Florence, just over the water from Muscle Shoals. And first time I met him after the rehearsal, he just said, "You should come down to Muscle Shoals and make an album. You sing like a pirate." And I'm like, "Oh, they like pirate music down in Muscle Shoals, do they?" All right, yeah, I think that might be the next big thing. And we were laughing about it. But he liked to, we went and had a drink, got a bottle of wine and sat in a hotel bar, and he told me he's just a fantastic human being, but brilliant storyteller. Amazing stories about the stuff he played on. How he opened for the Beatles at their first gig in the US. They got the Muscle Shoals rhythm section to go and be. So it was him and David Briggs and a bunch of other guys, and they were backing up like the Righteous Brothers and all these pop acts, but they were the band, And then he filmed the Beatles, and there's a bit of the Beatles live in. There's that gig in DC where they turn the drum kit round.
Yeah.
They're playing in the round in the middle of the room, and you can't hear any of the music, just screaming. And there's a bit of Super 8 that they use in some of the documentaries about the Beatles. It's sort of like they're actually in colour for a second, and that was Norbert took that.
Oh man.
And then the Beatles wanted him to go and go drinking with them afterwards, and they were like, thought the Beatles were. They didn't think they didn't want to hang out with them. But he later became great friends with George Harrison. He's a great name dropper, Norbert. He says, "You like curry?" I said, "Yeah, I like curry." He goes like, "Oh, first time I had curry was when I was staying at George Harrison's mansion in Weybridge. All they ate there was he had a cook, and all they made was Indian food. I never had it before. I loved it. He managed to get staying at George Harrison's house into a conversation about curry. Very good.
Fantastic.
But but then I saw him 6 months later. I was working in the Country Music Hall of Fame. I was like the artist in residence there, working in the Hatch print shop.
Yeah.
And one of the guys there said, "Oh, someone's playing. I forget who it was." And Norbert was playing with him. He produced an album for this guy. Oh God, who's it? Eric Anderson, is it? Yeah, I think Eric Anderson. Is that his name? I'm confused.
Yeah, it doesn't sound familiar.
No, I'm gonna have to look that up because I'm an idiot at the moment. But anyway, Norbert was there, and we went in the dressing room and said hello. And I said, "I Norbert, John." He went, "Yeah, when you come into Muscle Shoals, I asked you to come call me." And then there was a guy with me who was a journalist from Chicago, my mate Mark, and he just said, "I heard that. You've got to go and do it."
Yeah.
I was like, oh. So then it was like, again, site-specific recording. I go to Muscle Shoals. What would an old Welsh punk rocker do if he went to Muscle Shoals, and what would I write about? What would I do there? And I thought about the way Muscle Shoals was this kind of, bunch of white guys basically set up a studio, but it comes to the center of black soul music.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and I thought I've got to do something about race. And I've been working with Tony, and we've been trying to think of a project to get Bethany, her mate, in. And I suddenly thought, this is it. This is the one. Get Bethany in, because she's, Tony's sang on Old Devils and Here Be Monsters and the Roger Knox album with me, and she's got a great voice. And I was thinking, oh God, your voice sounds so good. And she goes, well, you should hear my friend Bethany. If you think I'm good, you should hear Bethany. Yeah. And I saw them singing together, and I loved it. We did a few things. I did some stuff with the Waco Brothers where they sang with us, and it's just.
Yeah, their two voices together is just magic.
Yeah, yeah, it's just, and it's that, it's one of the things, one of the things I love about America. And I said to them, do you want to go to Muscle Shoals? They're like, yes, of course. And we talked about the songs, and I said what I wanted to be about. And like, just basic stuff like I want a song about Muhammad Ali, because he was my hero when I was a kid. I want to write a song about that, and then, I want to write a song about this. I want to write songs about the South.
So did you write it all while you were down there?
No, I wrote it all beforehand. But I wrote it all. Mostly, I wrote a lot of it in Nashville. Yeah. When I was at Hatch working, I wrote a lot. When I had time off, I'd just sit and at my mate Grant's house, and he ended up being on the album as well. So it was just Grant Johnson. That is, he was a guy I'd met in Seattle, but he moved to Nashville. So I would usually stay with him when I go down there, and him and his wife are particularly lovely. And yeah, he's got a big bookshelf full of like books about country music that I didn't have. So while I was staying with him, and I'd sit up late at night and just read through these books, and I just loved all the stories, and it kind of like mute it. And then I heard loads of stories when I was at the Hall of Fame. So a lot of the songs came out of stories people told me. It was great, and that's what I figured. That's what.
Yeah, the essence of the sound of that record comes. You can feel the Muscle Shoals. It all came together. It seems like it was like really something.
Well, that was it. I said to Norbert, "Will you play bass on it?" And he went, "Oh, no, I'm gonna produce. I'll produce, and I'll get David Hood to play bass." And I was like, "What, David Hood?" Like the David Hood. He's going, oh yeah, I saw him the other night. I saw him. He still lives down there. I saw him the other night in the 7-Eleven. Yeah, we'll get him to come and play. So it was like, all right. And then he had a keyboard player that played with like everyone.
Wow.
Yeah. He sent me their resumes, and I'm going, oh Jesus, what's this? Lynyrd Skynyrd, Dionne Warwick. What? This guy played with Lynyrd Skynyrd and Dionne Warwick. Bob Seger Band. Okay, he's in. This guy Randy McCormack, and then, but then the drummer was actually Garth Brooks' drummer. Oh. It was a guy who's from Muscle Shoals, and he got the call. We booked him. and sorted it all out, and Norbert played him the stuff. Then Garth decided to come out of retirement. And I was like, oh, well, that's all right. I don't mind. And he said, I'm sure there's other drummers. And they found this guy, Eric, who was young, and it was really good because he was kind of like younger than me rather than everyone being older than me.
Yeah.
So it made it, and he wanted to hang out with us and the girls and everything. So it was like a bit more. It made it all a bit looser, But he's a phenomenal drummer, absolutely great.
What a record.
He finished his masterpiece, loud music and childhood seeds. Those people never gave him anything. Paint runs, it drips and dries, in a hurry to find some eyes. Shut the blinds and we'll be climbing higher still. There is a road that leads us home. There's still a road that leads us home, but I can't find it. If I was to marry you, you know what you'd have to do. Name your conditions and ask for everything. If we were trapped in an elevator, would you open the ventilator? Stuck between floors, it's like heaven here.
Well, the one band we overlooked here that we definitely got to talk a little bit about, you mentioned them, was the Waco Brothers, this amazing group of country punk rockers. And you guys have made a ton of records together, too, and they're all just so fun. And to see the Waco Brothers live is just a fun experience to check.
Yeah, that's really the essence of the Waco Brothers, is the live thing. And we started it as a kind of antidote to, Dean was in a touring band called Wreck, and when I first moved to Chicago, I met him. He'd asked me to produce it, I think, for Wax Trax. And we'd made this record and been in the studio with Steve Albini, and I've been on tour, and having all these legal problems. And we just discovered that we both liked, honky-tonk music. And we talked about it and said, he said, what, do you want to do some covers? Like, we'll go to a bar. And then Tracy was in it as well. I had some friends who had a bar. And they said, they'll just pay us in beer, and I'll bring a little PA. And we're like, okay. That sounds fun. So it was like an antidote to everything I've been doing.
Yeah.
I really felt, when I got to Chicago, I felt kind of spat out by the business. And I wanted to do something that didn't have any pressure whatsoever. And the Waco Brothers was just fun. We only did covers to start off with.
Right.
Then Bloodshot appeared, asked me to do a track. So I wrote a song for Bloodshot, not as the Wacos, but as Hillbilly Love Child, which was another. And then they saw the Waco Brothers. They go, we want you to make an album for our label. So you want to put old punk rockers do a country covers album? I said, it's like, well, he said, you can write songs. I was like, oh, all right, oh, shit. So I talked to Dean, he said, let's write some songs that, I said, let's write them so they're like old country songs, and then put them into the Waco Brothers sausage machine. And it'll come out like the Waco Brothers murdering old country songs.
Right.
So we tried to write these really formalish sort of country songs that worked as country songs, and then sort of sacrificed them. Yeah. What you think about the Wacos is that after being in the Mekons for all those years with all that history and all the kind of lineup changes and the different sounds, I really wanted to be in a band that kind of had a sound and didn't need an explanation, and you could take anywhere and put in front of any audience.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't need any, background knowledge.
Yeah.
And it would just be, it's Friday night, here's the Waco Brothers.
Like you say, the ultimate bar band, just a band that anybody's going to be able to sit around and have fun and drink to or whatever. Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you can't have intelligent songs with good melodies, but it's that energy.
Yeah.
But we've been lucky. We've just picked up these people through the years that are kind of remarkable. And, I love it when I see the Waco Brothers. I'm on stage and I see the Waco Brothers playing. I don't know, there's not many bands like that. We always kind of, it's kind of triumphant or something. It's weird. I was put them in a situation, I'm going like, when I did the Outlaw Country Cruise.
Oh.
And I said, well, what's that going to be like? What the Waco Brothers going to do? I said, well, we'll just conquer. We'll go there. No one will know who we are.
Yeah.
And everyone will love us because it's just, I haven't got to do anything. I just let them loose.
And there's 1 million artists on those cruises.
Yeah, but we did, like the Rolling Stone reviewed it, and we were like the first band they mentioned.
Damn, that's so cool.
It's just that's kind of what we do. We went to the Calgary Folk Festival once. We ended up, they had us back on stage at the end to play the final song at the first festival. Because it was, I don't know, they'd never seen anything like it.
Geez, I've had you over an hour now.
Better go.
This has been fantastic.
Okay,
but
hey Mick, I gotta go. I'll see you later, man.
We'll talk to you later.
I'll drop you a line.
Appreciate it. Talk to you later. Well, there you go. That's our interview with Jon Langford. What a great guy he is to spend some time with us talking about his over 40 years in the music biz. Be sure to go to yarddog.com to check out his fantastic paintings. And also go to langford.bandcamp.com for his Lucky 7 singles series and bloodshotrecords.com for lots more music. I want to thank my super producer Anthony for all his hard work and all of you for tuning in. And now, here is the exclusive new Mekons single for 2020, Escalera. So till the next time, my name is Mick Gray. Keep digging for those deep cuts.